Subscribe to Infidelity Tales Lab. Now, let's begin. Alan Durham pressed his stethoscope against the patient's chest, listening to the steady rhythm beneath the sternum. 3 a.m. at County General Mint, the ER, was finally quiet after a brutal Saturday night. Gunshot wounds, overdoses, a kitchen fire. The usual chaos that defined weekend shifts. He'd been pulling these night rotations for 6 months now, ever since Felicia insisted they needed the extra money for Emma's private school tuition. Dr. Durham, incoming trauma, the nurse called from the station. 8-year-old female, motor vehicle accident. ETA 2 minutes. Alan nodded, already moving toward the trauma bay. 8 years old. Emma's age. The thought made his chest tighten the way it always did when kids came through those doors. He scrubbed quickly, pulling on fresh gloves as the ambulance sirens grew louder outside. The paramedics burst through the doors, and Alan's training kicked in immediately. What do we have? Single vehicle collision, found in a ditch off Route 47, the lead paramedic reported. Multiple contusions, possible internal bleeding. Vitals are weak, but stable. No ID on her. The girl was unconscious, her small body strapped to the gurney. Dirt and blood matted her blonde hair. Alan started his assessment, calling out orders to his team. Stephen Hansen, his fellow ER physician, joined him at the bedside. Give me a CBC, type and cross, and call radiology for a full body scan, Alan directed. He carefully turned the girl's head to check for neck injuries, and his hand froze. The Batman Band-Aid on her left temple. The small scar above her right eyebrow from when she fell off her bike last summer. The silver bracelet with the tiny stars, the one he'd given her for her birthday 2 months ago. The clipboard slipped from his hands, clattering against the tile floor. Alan, Stephen looked at him sharply. You okay? That's Emma, Alan whispered. His voice sounded strange, distant. That's my daughter. The room seemed to tilt. Stephen grabbed his arm. Jesus, are you sure? Alan couldn't speak. He touched Emma's small hand, the one with the bracelet, and felt the familiar callus on her thumb from where she chewed it when she was nervous. The room exploded into motion around him, but he stood frozen, staring at his daughter's pale face. I need you to step back, Stephen said gently but firmly. Let me handle this. You can't treat your own daughter. Alan pulled out his phone with shaking hands. 17 missed calls to Felicia over the next hour. Everyone went straight to voicemail. He'd called her before his shift started, just after 6 p.m., and she'd said Emma was spending the night at her father's house. Paul Madden lived 40 miles north in Sterling Falls, a quiet retirement community where nothing ever happened. Why isn't she answering? Alan paced the hallway outside the trauma bay, watching through the window as Stephen worked on Emma. Nicholas Hastings, a detective he'd gotten to know through previous cases, appeared at his elbow. Dr. Durham, I need to ask you some questions about your daughter. She was supposed to be at her grandfather's house, Alan said numbly. My wife, Felicia, she told me Emma was staying there tonight. We found a vehicle in a ditch off Route 47. That's 30 miles south of here, opposite direction from Sterling Falls. Nicholas pulled out his notebook. The car is registered to a Damon Hyde. Does that name mean anything to you? Alan's mind was racing. No, never heard of him. The vehicle was reported stolen 2 days ago from a parking garage downtown. We're trying to locate Mr. Hyde now. Nicholas studied him carefully. When did you last see your daughter? This morning, before I left for work. She was eating breakfast, excited about seeing her grandfather. The memory felt like it belonged to someone else's life. Felicia drove her. I thought. His voice broke. Stephen emerged from the trauma bay, pulling off his gloves. She's stable. No internal bleeding, thank God. Concussion, 3 broken ribs, fractured left arm, and severe bruising. Alan, she's going to be okay. When will she wake up? Hard to say. Could be hours, could be tomorrow. The concussion was significant. Stephen gripped his shoulder. Go sit with her. I'll handle your shift. Alan sat beside Emma's bed in the ICU, holding her uninjured hand. Machines beeped softly around them, monitoring every breath, every heartbeat. He'd been a doctor for 12 years, had seen hundreds of patients in beds just like this one, but nothing had prepared him for seeing his own child hooked up to monitors and IVs. His phone buzzed. Finally. But it wasn't Felicia, it was Paul Madden. Alan, what the hell is going on? Felicia called me an hour ago, screaming about Emma being in the hospital. She said there was an accident. Why wasn't I told Emma was coming to visit me? Alan's blood went cold. What do you mean? Felicia told me she was dropping Emma off at your place yesterday afternoon. Silence on the other end. Then, Alan, I haven't seen Emma in 3 weeks. Felicia never called to arrange a visit. The pieces weren't fitting together. Alan ended the call and stood abruptly, nearly knocking over his chair. He found Nicholas Hastings in the hallway, talking to a uniformed officer. Detective, my father-in-law says Emma was never supposed to be at his house. Felicia lied to me. Nicholas's expression sharpened. Where's your wife now? I don't know. She finally called her father, but won't answer my calls. Alan felt something cold and hard settling in his chest. What happened to my daughter? We located Damon Hyde an hour ago. He's a personal trainer at Ironworks Gym downtown. Says his car was stolen from the parking garage Wednesday night. Filed a police report and everything. We're checking his alibi, but so far it's solid. Nicholas pulled out his phone, showing Alan a photo. Do you recognize this man? Damon Hyde was 30-something, muscular, with dark hair and the kind of sharp features that belonged on a cologne ad. Alan had never seen him before in his life. No. Should I? We're trying to establish a connection. Dr. Durham, I need to ask, how would you describe your marriage? The question hit like a physical blow. Alan thought about the past year. Felicia's late nights visiting friends. The new clothes, the expensive perfume. The way she'd started going to the gym 5 times a week. How she'd been distant, distracted, always on her phone. He'd told himself it was nothing. That 15 years of marriage meant trust. That people went through phases. Check his gym, Alan said quietly. Check if my wife is a member. 2 hours later, Nicholas returned with a folder. His face told Alan everything before he spoke a word. Felicia Durham joined Ironworks Gym 8 months ago. Damon Hyde is her personal trainer. According to the gym's records, they had sessions together 3 times a week. He paused. The manager mentioned they seemed very friendly. Alan sat down heavily. Emma was still unconscious 3 rooms away, broken and bruised, and his wife had been having an affair. But that didn't explain why Emma was in a stolen car, why she was 30 miles from where she was supposed to be, why. Emma's monitors started beeping rapidly. Alan was on his feet and running before the nurses reached her room. Her eyes were opening, unfocused and frightened. Emma, baby, it's Dad. You're safe. You're in the hospital. He kept his voice calm despite the storm raging inside him. Her eyes found his face and filled with tears. Daddy, I'm here, sweetheart. You're okay. You were in an accident, but you're going to be fine. Where's Mom? Her voice was hoarse, barely a whisper. She's not here right now. Emma, what happened? Can you tell me what you remember? Her small hand gripped his tightly. The tears spilled over, running down her cheeks. We weren't going to Grandpa's house. Mom lied. We went to Damon's apartment. He was mean, Daddy. He yelled at Mom a lot. Alan felt his jaw clench, so hard it ached. Damon? The man from her gym? Emma nodded, then winced in pain. I was supposed to stay in the bedroom, but I heard them fighting. Damon said he was tired of waiting, that Mom promised him money. Mom said she was working on it, that she needed more time. Then Damon said. Her voice dropped to a whisper. He said you had a big life insurance policy and that Mom needed to hurry up before you got suspicious. The room spun. Alan gripped the bed rail to steady himself. Mom started crying and said she couldn't do it, that she loved you. Emma's eyes were wide, terrified. But Damon got really angry. He grabbed her and said if she didn't do it soon, he'd handle it himself. He said he'd make it look like an accident and he'd take care of both of you. Both of us. Alan's voice was hollow. You and me, Daddy. Emma's tears came harder now. He said I was a loose end. That's when I ran. I grabbed Mom's phone and ran outside. I heard them chasing me, so I got into Damon's car. The keys were in it. I thought I could drive away, but I didn't know how. I'm sorry, Daddy. I'm so sorry. Alan pulled her carefully into his arms, mindful of her injuries. You're so brave. You saved yourself. I'm so proud of you. Call the police now. Emma sobbed against his shoulder. Mom, is she still there? With him. Daddy, I think he's going to hurt her. Even though what she did was bad, I don't want her to die. Nicholas Hastings was already on his phone, barking orders. Within minutes, the hallway filled with officers. Alan held his daughter while his entire world reorganized itself into a new, terrible shape. His wife had been planning to murder him for insurance money. Her lover was willing to kill their daughter to cover it up. And Emma, his brave, terrified little girl, had saved her own life by stealing a car she didn't know how to drive. Units are en route to Hyde's apartment, Nicholas reported. Dr. Durham, I need you to stay here with Emma. We'll handle this. Alan nodded, but his mind was already working. Years of emergency medicine had trained him to compartmentalize, to think clearly under pressure. The shock was still there, the betrayal cutting like glass, but underneath it something colder and more calculating was taking shape. Felicia had tried to have him killed, had endangered their daughter, had been lying to him for months, maybe longer. And Damon Hyde, a man who'd threatened an 8-year-old child, was still out there. The police would arrest them. There would be trials, lawyers, years of legal proceedings. Felicia might claim coercion, might get a lighter sentence. Hyde might cut a deal, might be out in 15 years. Alan looked at Emma's small, bruised face, at the cast on her arm and the bandages covering her cuts, and felt something fundamental shift inside him. No, the justice system wasn't enough. Not for this. The next 3 days passed in a blur of police statements, doctors' rounds, and endless questions. Felicia and Damon had been arrested without incident at his apartment. Felicia's story was exactly what Alan had expected. She claimed Hyde had manipulated her, that she'd never intended to go through with it, that she tried to protect Emma. Hyde, meanwhile, had lawyered up immediately and wasn't talking. Alan had to give a statement about the life insurance policy. $3 million, purchased 7 years ago when Emma was born. Felicia was the primary beneficiary. She'd been the one to suggest increasing the amount just 6 months ago. He remembered now. At the time, it had seemed like prudent financial planning. Stephen Hansen found him in the hospital cafeteria at 2 a.m., 4 days after Emma's accident. Alan was staring at a cup of coffee he hadn't touched, his mind miles away. You look like hell, Stephen said, sliding into the chair across from him. Emma's doing better. She should be able to go home in a few days. I wasn't asking about Emma. I was asking about you. Alan finally looked up at his friend. They'd worked together for 8 years, had pulled countless shifts side by side, had saved lives and lost them. Stephen knew him well enough to see through any bullshit. I keep thinking about what could have happened, Alan said quietly. If Emma hadn't been smart enough to run. If she'd been hurt worse. If Hyde had caught up to her. But none of that happened. She's alive because she's her father's daughter, clever and brave. They're going to prosecute Felicia for conspiracy to commit murder and child endangerment. Hyde is looking at attempted murder, kidnapping, assault on a minor. Alan's hands clenched around his coffee cup. Her lawyer is already working on a plea deal. She'll probably get 8 to 10 years, maybe less with good behavior. That's not justice. No, Alan agreed. It's not. Stephen studied him carefully. What are you thinking? I'm thinking, Alan said slowly, that some people spend their whole lives believing in systems and institutions, believing that justice will prevail. And then something happens that shows them how naive that belief was. Alan, Emma woke up screaming last night. She dreamed that Hyde was chasing her. She's 8 years old, Stephen. She'll have nightmares about this for the rest of her life. Therapy might help, time might help, but that fear, that betrayal, that's permanent. Stephen was quiet for a long moment. What are you going to do? I'm going to be there for my daughter. I'm going to help her heal. Alan met his friend's eyes. And then I'm going to make sure that Felicia and Damon Hyde understand what it means to threaten my family. The legal system. The legal system is a safety net for people who play by the rules. But Felicia and Hyde threw out the rulebook when they decided my daughter was expendable. Alan's voice was calm, almost clinical. I'm not going to do anything stupid. I'm not going to risk Emma losing the only parent she has left. But I'm going to ensure that justice, real justice, gets served. Stephen didn't say anything, but Alan could see the understanding in his eyes. They sat in silence until Alan's pager went off, calling him back to the ICU. Emma was discharged a week later. Alan took a leave of absence from a hospital, the first time he'd taken more than a few days off in 5 years. He moved them temporarily to a rental house across town, somewhere with no memories of Felicia, no reminders of the life they'd supposedly been building together. The preliminary hearings were scheduled for 3 weeks out. Alan hired Lynn Gilmore, a family attorney with a reputation for being ruthless in custody cases, though custody was hardly an issue. Felicia was facing serious criminal charges. Her parental rights would be terminated long before she saw the outside of a prison cell. "I've reviewed the police reports," Lynn said during their first meeting. Her office was downtown, decorated with abstract art and expensive furniture. "The evidence is damning. Your daughter's testimony alone is enough to convict, and the police found text messages between your wife and Mr. Hyde discussing the insurance policy. What kind of sentence is she looking at? The DA is pushing for 15 years. But Felicia's attorney, Janet Sampson, is good. She'll argue coercion, diminished capacity, claim Hyde was the mastermind and Felicia was just a victim of an abusive relationship." Lynn's expression was skeptical. "It's nonsense, but juries are unpredictable. She might get it down to 10 years, possibly less." 10 years. Emma would be 18. Felicia would still be young enough to start over, to rebuild her life. Meanwhile, Emma flinched every time a car door slammed. She couldn't sleep without a night light. She'd asked Alan 3 times yesterday if he was sure Damon Hyde was in jail. "And Hyde?" Alan asked. "He's facing more serious charges. Attempted murder of a child, kidnapping, assault. If convicted on all counts, he's looking at 25 to life. But he's going to testify against your wife, claim she seduced him into the plot, that she was desperate for money to maintain her lifestyle." Lynn shook her head. "They're going to destroy each other, trying to save themselves." After the meeting, Alan drove to Ironworks Gym. It was a converted warehouse in the industrial district, all exposed brick and chrome equipment. The place smelled like rubber and sweat. He stood in the lobby, watching through the windows as people worked out, and tried to imagine Felicia here. She'd always hated exercise. When had that changed? "Can I help you?" A woman with a clipboard approached him. Her name, tag, read Kate Bartlett, manager. "I'm Dr. Alan Durham. My wife was a member here." Kate's expression shifted immediately. "Oh, Dr. Durham, I'm so sorry about what happened. The police have been here several times asking questions. I'm trying to understand the timeline. When did my wife join?" Kate looked uncomfortable, but pulled up her tablet. "March 15th of this year. She signed up for a premium membership and 3 sessions per week with Damon Hyde. 8 months ago, right around the time Felicia had started talking about Emma needing private school, about them needing to think about their financial future. Did you ever interact with my wife?" "A few times. She seemed nice, quiet, always very focused during her workouts." Kate hesitated. "Look, I don't know if I should say this, but Damon was always professional with clients. I never saw any sign that he and your wife were involved." "He was careful," Alan said. "Thank you for your time." He left the gym and sat in his car, thinking. Felicia had been planning this for at least 8 months. That meant the affair with Hyde had probably started around the same time, maybe earlier. 8 months of lies, of pretending everything was fine while she plotted his murder. His phone buzzed with a text from Nicholas Hastings. "Can you come to the station? Found something you should see." The police station was familiar territory. Alan had been here dozens of times over the years, giving statements about assault victims and suspicious injuries. Nicholas led him to a small conference room and closed the door. "We've been digging into Hyde's background," the detective said, spreading files across the table. "He's got a record. Did 2 years for insurance fraud back in 2015. He was working as a physical therapist in Arizona, got caught staging car accidents with clients, and splitting the insurance payouts." Alan stared at the documents. "So, this is his pattern. Looks that way. He got out, moved to our state, changed careers but kept the same game. We found evidence he's done this at least twice before. Seduced women, convinced them to take out large insurance policies on their husbands, then staged accidents. In both previous cases, the women backed out before anything happened. Hyde moved on to new targets. But Felicia didn't back out. No, According to the text messages we recovered, she was all in. In fact, some of the earlier messages suggest the insurance angle was her idea. Nicholas pulled out a printed text chain. Look at this from April. Alan read the messages, feeling sick. Felicia to Hyde. I've been thinking about what you said. The policy is worth $3 million. If something happened to Alan, we could be together without money stress. Start over somewhere new. Hyde's response. Are you serious? You'd actually do it? Felicia. I'm tired of living in a house that's too small, driving a car that's 10 years old. Alan is so focused on saving for Emma's future that we never get to enjoy our lives now. With the insurance money, we could have everything. There were dozens more messages, each one worse than the last. Felicia complaining about their life, about Alan's long hours at the hospital, about feeling trapped and bored. Hyde encouraging her, helping her rationalize murder as liberation. She wanted this, Alan said numbly. It wasn't coercion. It wasn't manipulation. She wanted me dead. I'm sorry, Dr. Durham. But yes, the evidence suggests your wife was a willing participant from the beginning. In fact, we think she approached Hyde with the idea after learning about his criminal history from another gym member who knew him in Arizona. Alan felt the last thread of doubt snap. He'd been holding on to some small hope that Felicia had been tricked, that underneath the betrayal there was still some remnant of the woman he'd married. But these messages showed the truth. She'd researched Hyde. She'd known exactly what she was doing. There's more, Nicholas said carefully. We found additional correspondence between your wife and her father, Paul Madden. What about him? She'd been asking him for money for months. Large amounts. He refused most of the requests, told her she needed to live within her means. In September, she asked him for $50,000 to cover debts. He said no. Nicholas pulled out another document. That's when the messages with Hyde got more serious. She went from fantasizing about the insurance money to actively planning how to make it happen. So Felicia's own father had unknowingly pushed her toward murder by refusing to enable her spending. Alan almost laughed at the bitter irony. Thank you for showing me this, detective. It helps to know the full picture. Dr. Durham, I need to ask, are you doing okay? This is a lot to process. I'm fine, Alan lied. I'm focused on Emma right now, making sure she feels safe. But as he drove home, Alan's mind was cataloging information the way he cataloged symptoms in the ER. Felicia was a willing participant who'd actively planned his murder. Hyde was a repeat offender who'd threatened an 8-year-old child. The legal system would punish them, yes, but not enough. Never enough. He thought about the Hippocratic oath he'd taken 12 years ago. First, do no harm. He dedicated his life to healing, to saving lives. But the oath also said physicians should use their skills to benefit patients and protect them from harm. Emma was his patient now, in a way. She needed protection from the people who'd try to hurt her. And sometimes protecting meant removing threats. Alan pulled into the driveway of their rental house and sat for a moment, thinking he wasn't going to kill anyone. That would be stupid, and he'd go to prison, leaving Emma alone. But there were other ways to ensure justice. Ways that would hurt more than prison time ever could. He went inside and found Emma in the living room, drawing. She'd been drawing constantly since leaving the hospital, working through her trauma with crayons and paper. Hey, sweetheart, what are you making? A picture of our new house, Emma said. It has a big yard and a tree house and a dog. Can we get a dog, Daddy? Maybe. When things settled down, he sat beside her, wrapping his arm around her small shoulders. Emma, I need you to know something. You're safe now. I promise you'll always be safe. What about Mom? Alan chose his words carefully. Your mom made some very bad choices. She's going to be in jail for a long time. But she can't hurt us anymore. I miss her sometimes, Emma whispered. Even though what she did was terrible. Is that wrong? No, baby. It's not wrong. She's still your mother. It's okay to miss her. Alan kissed the top of her head. But it's also okay to be angry with her. You can feel both things at once. Emma nodded and returned to her drawing. Alan watched her for a moment, then pulled out his phone and started making notes. He had work to do. The next 2 weeks were a whirlwind of preparations. Alan hired a private investigator, Wendell Brooks, who had a reputation for being discreet and thorough. He gave Wendell a simple task: Learn everything about Damon Hyde and Felicia's life over the past year. Wendell was good at his job. By the end of week 1, Alan had a comprehensive file on his desk. Hyde owed money to several dangerous people, loan sharks who didn't take kindly to non-payment. He'd been funding his lifestyle with loans he couldn't repay, betting on insurance payouts that never materialized from previous targets who'd backed out. Felicia had been living a double life, more extensive than Alan had imagined. She'd rented a storage unit full of designer clothes and handbags, things she couldn't bring home without raising suspicion. She'd been taking Emma to her friend Erica Rowe's house, except Erica confirmed to police she hadn't seen Felicia in over a year. Instead, Felicia had been taking Emma to Hyde's apartment, forcing their daughter to stay quiet in a bedroom while they spent time together. The more Alan learned, the colder his resolve became. These weren't crimes of passion or desperation. They were calculated, selfish choices made by two people who valued money and pleasure over an innocent child's life. Alan's plan began to take shape. It required precision, patience, and perfect timing. It also required help. He called Stephen Hansen one evening and asked him to come over after Emma was asleep. "I need your help with something," Alan said once they were alone in his home office. "And before you agree, you need to know it's not exactly legal." Stephen raised an eyebrow. "I'm listening." "Hyde owes money to some very bad people, the kind who don't go through legal channels to collect debts. I want to make sure those people know exactly where to find him, and that they know about the insurance money he was trying to get. You want to sick loan sharks on him in prison?" "Not in prison. That's too easy. I want him to be afraid every day for the rest of his life. I want him to understand what it feels like to be hunted." Alan pulled out the files Wendell had compiled. "But I need someone who knows how to make contact with people like that. Someone who won't trace back to me." Stephen was quiet for a long moment. "You could go to prison if this goes wrong. Only if someone can prove I did it. That's why I need your help. You know, people I don't, ER docs meet all kinds in this city." "What about Felicia?" Alan smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. "Felicia is going to get exactly what she asked for. She wanted money so badly. She's going to find out what it costs." 3 weeks later, Alan sat in the courtroom for the preliminary hearing. Felicia was led and wearing an orange jumpsuit, her hair pulled back, no makeup. She looked older, tired. She glanced at him once, and he saw tears in her eyes. He felt nothing. Janet Sampson, Felicia's attorney, made her arguments about coercion and manipulation. The prosecutor countered with the text messages, the timeline, the evidence that Felicia had initiated the plot. The judge wasn't sympathetic. "Mrs. Durham, you stand accused of conspiracy to commit murder and child endangerment. The evidence presented is substantial. Bail is denied. Your trial date is set for January 15th. 4 months away. Plenty of time." Damon Hyde's hearing was separate, held the following day. Alan attended that one too, sitting in the back. Hyde looked confident, almost cocky. His lawyer was already making deals with the prosecutor, offering to testify against Felicia in exchange for reduced charges. Alan watched Hyde carefully. The man had no remorse, no fear. He thought he was smart enough to play the system, to walk away with a light sentence by betraying his accomplice. That was going to change. After the hearing, Alan met with Wendell Brooks in a coffee shop downtown. "I've made contact with Hyde's creditors," Wendell said quietly. "They're very interested in the information about his whereabouts and his upcoming trial. They were under the impression he'd left the state. And they understand the situation with the insurance money. They understand he tried to scam $3 million and failed. They're not happy about it. When he gets to prison, and he will, they have connections inside." Wendell slid an envelope across the table. "This is everything you asked for. After today, we've never met. I don't know you." Alan took the envelope. "Thank you. Dr. Durham, one more thing. These people I contacted, they don't play around. What happens to Hyde in prison won't be pretty." "Good," Alan said simply. He had one more piece to put in place. That evening, he called Paul Madden. "Alan, I've been wanting to talk to you," his former father-in-law said. "I need you to know I had no idea what Felicia was planning. If I'd known—" "I know you didn't," Alan interrupted. "Paul, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. How much debt did Felicia have?" Silence. Then, I don't know exact numbers, but she'd been asking me for money for over a year. She mentioned credit cards, store accounts. I told her she needed to handle it herself, that borrowing from me wouldn't solve the problem. I need you to do something for me. I need you to talk to her lawyer and tell them that you're not paying for Felicia's defense, that she needs a public defender. Alan, I can't do that. She's my daughter. She tried to have me killed, Paul. She put Emma in a situation where she could have died. And you know what? I've looked into Felicia's debts. She owes over $200,000 to various creditors. If Janet Sampson keeps defending her, those bills are going to fall to you when Felicia can't pay them from prison. Is that really what you want? Paul was quiet for a long time. What are you trying to do? I'm trying to make sure justice actually gets served. With a public defender, Felicia won't get the same quality of defense. She'll get the sentence she deserves. And you'll avoid financial ruin in the process. She's my daughter, Paul repeated, but his voice was weaker now. And Emma is mine. Make your choice. Alan hung up. He felt no guilt. Paul Madden had contributed to this situation by enabling Felicia's spending for years. Now he could face the consequences too. 2 days later, Lynn Gilmore called with news. Janet Sampson has withdrawn from Felicia's case. Paul Madden informed her he won't be paying her fees. Felicia's being assigned a public defender. That's unfortunate for her, Alan said neutrally. Alan, what are you doing? Making sure my daughter gets justice. Is there a problem? No, Lynn said slowly. No problem. The public defender assigned to her case is overworked and inexperienced. Felicia's chances of getting a plea deal just dropped significantly. Good. The weeks before the trial passed slowly. Emma started therapy with a child psychologist, Dr. Angela Lee, who specialized in trauma. Slowly, the nightmares became less frequent. Emma smiled more. She made friends at her new school. Alan threw himself into being present for her. They took weekend trips to the mountains. They adopted a golden retriever puppy named Max. They started building a new life, one where Felicia was just a painful memory. But Alan kept tabs on the legal proceedings. Felicia's new lawyer, a public defender named Johnny Randolph, was doing his best, but he was no match for the prosecution's case. Hyde's lawyer had worked out a deal. He'd plead guilty to lesser charges and testify against Felicia in exchange for 15 years instead of life. Except Hyde never made it to trial. Alan was having breakfast with Emma when Nicholas Hastings called. Dr. Durham, I thought you should know. Damon Hyde was attacked in county jail last night. Multiple stab wounds. He's in critical condition at University Hospital. Is he going to survive? Unknown. He's in surgery now. Nicholas paused. It's strange. The attack happened right after his cellmate was transferred in, a guy named Gerardo Compton, serving time for loan sharking. Compton claims self-defense, says Hyde attacked him first. Terrible thing, Alan said. I hope they sort out. He hung up and looked at Emma, who was feeding Max pieces of bacon under the table. Who was that, Daddy? Just a work friend, sweetheart. Nothing important. Hyde survived the attack, but suffered permanent damage to his spine. He'd walk with difficulty for the rest of his life, and the constant pain would require medication he'd have limited access to in prison. His plea deal fell apart when he couldn't testify. The attack had left him with cognitive impairments and memory issues that made him an unreliable witness. The prosecutor was furious, but there was nothing to be done. Hyde was sentenced to the full 25 years without the benefit of his cooperation agreement. Felicia's trial began in January. Without Hyde's testimony, the case relied heavily on the text messages and Emma's statement. Alan testified about the insurance policy and Felicia's behavior in the months before the attempted murder. He kept his testimony factual, clinical, showing no emotion. Felicia took the stand in her own defense. She cried, claimed she'd been manipulated, said she'd never have gone through with it. But the prosecutor destroyed her on cross-examination, reading her own text messages back to her, showing the jury exactly how premeditated and cold-blooded the plot had been. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. They found her guilty on all counts. At sentencing, the judge was harsh. Mrs. Durham, you conspired to murder your husband for money. You endangered your own daughter's life. You showed no remorse until you were caught. I sentence you to 20 years in state prison without possibility of parole for 15. Felicia sobbed as she was led away. Alan watched, and all he felt was a distant satisfaction. 20 years. Emma would be 28 when Felicia got out, old enough to decide for herself if she wanted anything to do with her mother. But Alan wasn't done yet. 6 months after Felicia's sentencing, Alan received a call from the prison. Felicia wanted to speak with him. He almost refused, but curiosity got the better of him. The visiting room was depressing. Gray walls, metal tables, guards watching every interaction. Felicia looked hollow, her face gaunt, her eyes empty. Prison had not been kind to her. "Thank you for coming," she said. Her voice was hoarse. "I wasn't sure you would. You have 5 minutes. What do you want?" "I need to tell you something. About what happened before the trial." She glanced at the guard, then lowered her voice. "Someone's been targeting me. Little things at first. My commissary account emptied. My cell searched constantly, my mail lost. But last month I was attacked in the showers. 3 women. They said someone paid them to send you a message." Alan kept his face neutral. "What message?" "That you always protect your family." Tears ran down Felicia's face. "Alan, did you do this? Did you arrange for people to hurt me? I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just a doctor raising my daughter. Please, I know I deserve to be here. I know what I did was unforgivable. But this, living in fear every day, never knowing when someone's going to come after me, it's torture. You tried to have me killed," Alan said quietly. "You put our daughter in danger. You don't get to ask me for mercy. I'm asking you to stop. Whatever you're doing, please stop. I'll do my time. I'll stay away from Emma. Just make it stop." Alan stood up. "I came here to tell you something, Felicia. Every night, Emma used to wake up screaming because she dreamed that Hyde was chasing her. She was terrified, traumatized by what you did. Do you know what I told her?" Felicia shook her head, crying harder. "I told her that bad people always get what they deserve. That justice finds everyone eventually." He leaned in close. "You wanted money so badly that you were willing to kill for it. Now you have nothing. No money, no family, no future. And every day for the next 20 years, you're going to wake up in that cell and remember that you did this to yourself. Alan, please. Goodbye, Felicia." He walked out and didn't look back. The guard at the door nodded to him. Ron Ingram, a man Alan had treated in the ER 2 years ago for a broken hand. A man who owed him a favor and who happened to work at the women's correctional facility. Alan drove home to the house he and Emma had bought in a quiet neighborhood with good schools. Max bounded up to greet him, and Emma called out from the kitchen, "Daddy, I made cookies." He found her at the counter, flour on her face, beaming with pride. The nightmares were gone now. She was thriving. "They smell amazing, sweetheart. Dr. Lee says I'm making really good progress. She says I'm one of the bravest kids she knows." She's right about that. Alan hugged her tightly. "How about we take Max to the park after dinner? Can Steven come too? He promised to teach me how to throw a curveball." "Sure thing." Later, while Emma played with Max in the backyard, Alan sat on the porch with a glass of whiskey and watched the sunset. He thought about the Hippocratic Oath, about the promise to do no harm. He'd broken that oath in a way. He'd caused harm to Felicia and Hyde, had arranged for them to suffer in ways the legal system never could. But he'd done it to protect his daughter, to ensure that the people who tried to destroy his family paid the full price. And he'd do it again without hesitation. His phone buzzed. A text from Wendell Brooks, from an untraceable number. Both packages delivered as requested. "Services concluded. Good luck." Alan deleted the message and finished his whiskey. Damon Hyde would spend the next 25 years in prison, in constant pain, looking over his shoulder, owing debts to people who would never stop collecting. Felicia would spend 20 years in a facility where she had no friends, no protection, and no hope of early release. The legal system had given them prison time. Alan had given them justice. He went inside and found Emma curled up on the couch with Max, reading a book. She looked up when he entered and smiled. That bright, beautiful smile that reminded him why he'd fought so hard. "Hey, Daddy, can we get ice cream tomorrow? There's a new place downtown." "Absolutely. We can make it a celebration." "What are we celebrating?" Alan sat beside her and pulled her close. "New beginnings, sweetheart. Our new life." Emma snuggled against him, and Max jumped up to complete the picture, a family, healing, and whole. Outside, the neighborhood was quiet, peaceful. The past was behind them, locked away where it belonged. Alan had learned something important through all of this. The world wasn't fair, and the legal system couldn't always deliver real justice. But sometimes, if you were smart enough, patient enough, and willing to do what needed to be done, you could set things right yourself. He protected his daughter. He'd ensured that the people who tried to hurt her would suffer for it. And he'd done it all without leaving a trace that could come back to haunt them. The nightmares were over. The threats were neutralized. And Alan Durham, ER doctor and devoted father, had won. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.